Hi there, this is Photography of Director podcast, and my name is Vitaly Bokser. I'm a cinematographer and I work on all sorts of different projects, and I've decided to do a podcast about other filmmakers. Today we continue our discussion with Carlos Almonte. If you missed part 1, check it out as we discuss Carlos's past. This part will deal strictly with his current work as a working editor and director. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes with a video or audio only feed. Just look up Photography of Director. And all the links to the films we chat about can be found on photographyofdirector.com. Please enjoy the show. But which one do you want to start with? You worked on this awesome one with Errol Morris. Do you want to discuss that? I mean, it doesn't have to be in any order, just basically some editing projects.
The Errol Morris one, that was one that I did for an ad agency for Ogilvy. Yeah. What was fun about that one was we did that one, it was a couple years back. That was a fun one. They had timed, so IBM did this thing for them, and they had timed the forum to take place while there was a UN summit happening. So there was all these world leaders and CEOs of companies, all these great minds essentially coming down. And so they decided to set up shop really close to the UN. And so there was 2 teams working with the 2 directors. I was editing in the back of a synagogue that was a block away. We made an editing facility in the back of there, and Errol was downstairs, and they would shoot it. They'd run the footage upstairs, and we would try to cut something together as quickly as possible. The idea for that was to have very little turnaround time to get it up on the web. So it was almost like a live stream.
Got it. Okay, why don't I show a little bit of it so people see what we're talking about?
You also talk about things that are just completely unpredictable, like changes in the price of the yen, tsunamis, etc. How do you deal with that?
There's a moment when you feel a bit sorry for yourself. Well, wait a minute. I was looking at a year in which we expected to make record profits.
These are all on your site, and I'll put up these links to my site as well so people see some of this stuff. I just wanted to show, obviously you're now working with titans, That guy's not Errol Morris is a giant in the documentary world, So
he was a lot of fun to work with, actually.
Now, was he a cool guy?
Yeah, he was a cool guy. That was a really tough day because we were on really, really tight timelines for shooting as well as to post these things. So I think you could definitely feel the tension in the air. We're trying to get these things out, and we also they were just shooting them almost faster than we could get them out. And inherently, what would happen is he would talk to these people for so long, and there was just so many great moments that we wanted to make. You could cut 10 pieces out of these. So some of it was even just trying to figure out the moments that you use. And so that was it was creatively satisfying, but it was also one of those situations where you just literally have to know how to run that computer as fast as possible because we just don't have time. It just needs to get done.
He also has an interesting process for people. They have to actually watch the video of this podcast if they care. If not, they're not listening to it. But basically, he is on something called an Interatron. He's actually on, and he this is his technique that basically the person being interviewed sees his face as opposed to the camera and looks directly into the camera. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how he works with that? Because not everybody knows Errol Morris.
Essentially, he runs. It's a 2-camera shoot, but he runs the output of each of their other cameras to a teleprompter setup. So he's using the output monitor as the way a teleprompter would. So the way that the interviewee would look and see text on the screen, they're actually seeing the output of the camera that's filming him. So they're actually having a direct line of sight conversation with him, and it's a technique that gets a really intimate. It creates a really intimate dialogue between him and the interviewee, more so than sitting even really, really close to the lens. It's a direct line of sight. You're seeing exactly what he's seeing, and vice versa. And he invented it years ago. A lot of people have stolen it since then.
Yes. Well, now everybody, even I carry this Interatron around a lot of shoots to imitate his look. Yeah.
It just makes sense. It was a really, really smart idea.
Well, it's cool to see it in an actual cutaway, and the cutaway is to a camera with an Interatron, basically his screen face. It's not even him.
Star Wars, right?
It's not even him. It's just some other guy on a TV screen that he's talking to.
And then it's his face just sitting on it.
Yeah, I found that process fascinating. So let me show another spot. Showtime Sports. So you did a lot of Showtime. I'm just showing a couple. Let me go to Carlos's site just so everyone understands the breadth of the work we're discussing here.
That Ray Donovan catch-up spot was a lot of fun too. That Ray Donovan, we were really proud of that one.
I don't know if I see that one, but
season 1 recap, that was a good spot.
Ray Donovan. Well, we might find it, but here is basically a lot of work, and some of it's directorial, editorial, and motion graphics. But you can see, he worked Don Cheadle, editing something Don Cheadle did, and then some sports stuff for Showtime. And what is that? Is that you?
No, I'm just getting. Yeah, I'm getting that.
And there's a lot of stuff, obviously, with big folks. I just want people to take a quick look at it. And Dexter, you cut some promos for Dexter, right?
Yeah, cut a bunch of promos for Dexter, added value stuff. I mean, stuff for on demand. I think it might have been a function of 9/11 actually. Because when 9/11 happened, like I was saying, a lot of production had stopped, and I think what I noticed after that was there was a demand for content. I mean, you still had to create content, but there wasn't as much shooting going on, and so what I noticed was there were challenges put out there, like how can we get more miles out of what we've already shot, whether it's BTS footage, how can we creatively use the shows that we have, the BTS footage that we have, how can we create just new content for viewers, whether it's on demand or like the mobile technology. That stuff was starting to gain some traction back in the day, and it really did become like an editor's playground. To just like go and create, you just create. Like, you could write something, whether it's with VO or do something cool with music, and so you really got a chance to play.
Yeah, I never heard of that perspective where basically the recession, or after 9/11, sort of a recession came shortly after, right? 5 years? No, I don't remember.
Well, it wasn't a recession. I mean, there was an immediate void. Like
immediately, like just the bottom dropped out.
Nothing was being shot, but you still needed content, and at the same time, the internet was really starting to take over. Bandwidth was getting to the point where you could actually stream video, and everybody wanted to be first in terms of just like generating content. So I think there was, in college we would call them found footage exercises. They would give you just a bunch of footage and a music track and make a story, but now you actually could do it, and people would see it, and it would be on demand, or because that was also starting to emerge, and you needed content to justify the existence, and mobile and the internet was starting to take off. So people were just looking to create content with what they already had, because you weren't shooting anything more, and budgets had been slashed, because nobody knew what was going to happen with the economy. And so I really think that became an editor's playground. In addition, cameras got better, technology got cheaper, computers got more powerful. I mean, all that stuff I think came together to create the ecosystem, the environment that we see today.
Cool. So let me show them some of your other work. Let me go to sports. It's the Showtime Sports All Access, Canelo versus Lopez. And this is just, if you want to tell us a bit about it before I start it up.
That was, Showtime does these, they'll do these pieces that follow fighters on the road to a fight, leading up to the fight. And they're like, they're documentary verite style. They have interviews and things broken up, and most of it's just verite. You sort of follow these guys, and I guess the thinking is if you get to know them, you're much more invested in them as a person, as an individual, more so than just a fighter or a record or whatever it is. And so they would go and they'd follow these two camps, and we'd create these hour-long shows. Sometimes they'd order 2 or 3 episodes of it, and you get in there with a team. A couple producers, couple editors, some assistants, and you create a story that leads up to the fight, so that when you get in there on fight night, even if you don't know these guys, you feel like you have, you know more about them than just what their record would say.
So they took you to these fights, right? While they're actually filming them, you're cutting all these pieces.
No. Some of them, yeah. Like when they had their Strike Force, when they had their MMA, we'd go out and we would do like the roll-ins and the teases and the stuff that would actually play, in the arenas and that sort of thing on site. But no, this stuff was all done, in New York. We would be in New York. They would send crews out and they would shoot, and we'd get drives FedEx back, and it would get ingested, and we would cut. And they were always in communication. If they felt like, okay, we would love a scene like this, or maybe we need to flesh this out, or can we have them talk about this? And it was just an ongoing conversation between production and post, and they would just bring us endless amounts of hard drives, and we would just cut it all together.
Well, I'll play this one real quick.
Todo está en esta noche. Ya tenemos visualizado el rival, ya tenemos todo para Víctor Ortiz. Es muy importante esta noche. después de que salga bien, si sale bien todo bien, entonces vamos al 100% con Víctor Ortiz.
Wow, they're banging away. That left hook by Lopez getting in.
Came to fight. Came to fight.
Qué perro el morro, pero que no gane.
Oh! Look at the exchange. Lopez.
Lo está lastimando. Lo está lastimando.
Lopez chased him down.
But anyway, okay. So here we are actually at the Boatlift Doc. So we'll talk about this before we talk about the Haiti doc. Tell us about this before I show a little bit of it.
That was a film that Eddie was commissioned to make for the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. So that was supposed to, we did that in 2011, and that was a film that was commissioned to tell essentially the last untold story of 9/11. It was, I forgot how the story fell into his lap, but essentially on the day of 9/11, there was they shut everything down. I mean, all the bridges, all the tunnels were closed. There was a whole bunch of people that needed to get out of Manhattan, and what nobody knew, and what I found out was that there was this impromptu boat evacuation that took place where the ferry drivers and private boats and party boats essentially just started taking people off the city. Off of the island and taking them to Jersey or to Brooklyn or to wherever they needed to go to get off the island and to safety. Because people were like jumping in the water. It was getting dangerous out there, and that was really the only way that you could get off the island. And so this film is the story of these captains who essentially saved what ended up being the largest boat evacuation in history. It ended up being the largest boat evacuation.
I mean, I evacuated also in 9/11, and I had no idea that was going on until you showed me the documentary.
I had no idea either, and it was like 10 years. And that's the thing that a lot of people have said since then is like we never even knew that this happened. But you can actually look. I mean, as far as the work that I've done, I think that piece has to be the thing that people have seen the most. I think it has over 7 million views for a 10-minute, 12-minute documentary. To have 7 million views, I mean, it's incredible.
Well, you also scored. Who narrated it? You guys got like pretty lucky there.
Tom Hanks. Yeah, Tom Hanks. He was doing a 9/11 film that year. What was that one? Was it Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close?
I don't recall.
He was doing a film. That was 9/11 related, and a series of connections. People had gotten in touch with him and said, "Hey, can you?" Would you want to lend your voice to this thing? And he said yes. He said yes.
All right, let me show it.
Yeah, show it.
I thought I was watching a movie, Towering Inferno at first. And then I looked real close, and I noticed it was the World Trade Center. I was compelled because I'm a type of person that can't stand by and watch other people suffer. And to me, they were suffering. They wanted to get off the island. And there was no way for them to get off the island other than the water. And I had noticed when I was watching the television, I saw a lot of, the ferries going up into the slips and taking people off. I said, fine, we could do the same thing. I could take people on my boat, get in there, take them where they have to go. And that's what we did.
On the morning of September 11th, when the towers came down, millions of people ran for safety. Hundreds of thousands of them ran south to the water's edge. That's when they realized that Manhattan is indeed an island, and that they were trapped.
Cool. I just wanted to hear Tom Hanks' voice, really.
That was very cool having my Tom Hanks in your bin.
Oh yeah. I've worked with Tom. I worked with Tom. That's all you gotta say.
I call him Tom. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Tommy boy, get over here.
Actually, what was really funny about that, I was with Eddie. Eddie was directing him over the phone when he was doing the VO session, and when he first walked in, he had written up on his scooter because he was practicing a scooter for his film. So he comes in and you hear him, coming in the room, and he sits down to do the session. And Eddie said something like, "If you want, you can just read the lines, and we'll go ahead and we'll comp it in. You don't actually have to watch the film." And he was like, "No, I want to watch the film." And so he's there in the VO session recorded in LA, and we were in New York at the time, and we sat there over the phone listening to him watch the film. So we're all just like sitting there, like listening, like, what is he going to say? What is he going to say?
Thank God it's not a 3-hour movie, huh?
I know, right? It was a feature. Like, I'm gone. I'm going to mute this. I'll see you later. No, but he watched the whole film, didn't say a word, and when it was over, he said something like, "That is a brilliant piece of filmmaking there, my friends." And we looked at each other and we're like, yes, okay, if someone like on his level can say it. He was like, that was really good. It was really touching, and he was actually really happy to be a part of the project. So
I mean, Joel, just watching right now the trailer, I wanted to see the rest. I didn't want to turn it off. I felt
no, you've never seen it.
I think I saw it a long time ago, but now after not seeing it so long and us chatting, like I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder what happens.
I don't want to spoil it for you. Like,
right? I don't want. Yeah, I know it ends now.
But it was a really, really, really rewarding project. It was a lot of hours. I mean, we spent a lot of time.
Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it on my website. Obviously, people have to go and at least check that out. Your other work they could ignore, but watch Boatlift.
Yeah, it's worth the 10 minutes. It's one of those projects where, on more than one occasion, a couple different places that I've worked, somebody would come in my room after knowing me for a couple of months. Somebody would just come in and say, my dad sent me this video yesterday, and I watched this thing. It was on this like boat, evacuation that happened on 9/11. I looked in the credits and I saw your name. Is that you? And it's like, that's happened to me more than once. I've gotten emails from random people who said that someone sent it to them, and there's got to be something to that 6 degrees of separation, because like over 7 million people have viewed it. So I actually have gotten some of that extended, those extended connections. And somehow it's been traced back to me.
So this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Basically, something we discussed briefly before we started the podcast, that you and I basically, we're talking about how when you make the most amount of money on a project, in most cases in our business, it's not necessarily the best project, right? It's always something that sort of pays the bills, is great, gets you a good dinner, pays a car loan, whatever it is. But then I'm sure something like this, the Boatlift, was not a moneymaker for you, unless I'm completely wrong on that.
The rate was decent. I mean, the rate on that was comparable. It was definitely a livable wage. We weren't sitting outside. Like I wasn't rubbing nickels together, trying to pay my rent. No, it was paid. It wasn't as much as you could make working at a network or an ad agency, but that was not at all why I took that.
No, but right, that's what I'm saying. Like, you probably spent way more time trying to perfect that because it meant more.
Well, okay, think about it like this. I was a product of 9/11. Had 9/11 not have happened, I think my career path would have gone completely different. You could say better or worse, whatever it is, but it would have gone completely different. Whatever it was, 9/11 will forever, it was a turning point. It was a point of no return. My life, my career was going to go in another direction. And because of that, because so much of my career, you have to understand, like, once 9/11 happened, it took me a year or so to get back. And there were points when it was really, really tough. And so that forced me to reaffirm my commitment. How much do you want this? Do you really want to stay in bed? Blah, blah, blah. All these things. It really did force me to look and like really be committed and make the push to stick with this business. So coming back to it 10 years later, having been successful, enjoyed some success, working with some great people, I felt like I owed it to pay that back, because I did really well. Like I did really well, in the aftermath of that. It took a minute. It took a couple of years, but I definitely did really well in the aftermath of that. And so when that project came along, it was a no-brainer. Like I needed to work on that project. Plus, it was a great story. It was one that I'd never heard of. It was the 10-year anniversary, which until the 20th year really is like the main milestone anniversary. It's the first time that like we as a society will like look back and be able to really see how much has changed. In addition to that, it was going to air on CNN on the day of 9/11. It was, Anderson Cooper did a throw to it. And so there was all these things associated with that project that made it an absolute no-brainer. So the money was not a concern, but more often than not, yeah, if you have to balance that out. you'll find more often than not you have to make that choice. It's something that you really want to do. It might not pay as much, or it's something that pays a lot of money and you might not be in love with, or it's a hard project, or you might not have any creative freedom in it. But you balance the both. You need them both, really.
No, of course, and I advocate doing both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about Boatlift? Let me play a little bit of it. I'm not Boatlift, I'm sorry. Red Cross Haiti. Let me just play a little bit, and then you'll tell us more about the project, all right?
Okay.
How'd the Red Cross do this year? I think we did pretty well. We're almost 2 years out after the earthquake, and we've got relief programs that have been running and operating to meet the needs of 500,000 people that are still living on the streets.
You can see life coming back to normal. People have transitioned from tents to temporary shelters. You have people who will be going back to their homes, kids going back to school. The end goal is to give it back to the Haitians. So when we go, there's not a gap left.
So I'll stop it here, but you also, I want to discuss this because not only did you cut this, you shot it.
Yeah.
And this is also with Eddie, right?
Yeah, we went out. He just called me up one day. He's like, "You want to go to Haiti?" I was like, "Sure, let me know when." And we were there like within a week or something. Yeah, it was fun.
That's pretty amazing. So, but tell us about the project a little bit. This is after their earthquake.
That was they got hit with the earthquake, and then I think they raised more money after that natural disaster than any other natural disaster in the history of anything. I'm not sure I had that right, but I believe that was the case. And from what I understand, a lot of that money, when those disasters happen, gets raised very quickly after it happens. Let's say a month or so later, it sort of falls off the radar in terms of the conversation, the general public conversation. So they raised a lot of money for that, and Red Cross was brought in to basically stretch that money out and use that money to rebuild the country. So coming up on the 2-year anniversary of that, they wanted to do a piece that was like, well, this is what we've spent the money on, and this is why there's a continuing need. And so we went out a few months before, and the idea was to go and see what's working well, see what's not working so well, see some of the achievements that they've had, see some of the challenges that are still remaining, and have the piece ready in time so that when the 2-year anniversary comes around, they can restart the efforts and hopefully raise more money and keep it in the public conversation.
So obviously, besides being a good doc piece, but what's interesting is that a producer/director, Eddie Rosenstein, decided to take Carlos, mostly an editor, to go shoot a documentary. So what is wrong with this picture?
Well, I think, well, look, we basically lived together. We were basically married for the several months that it took to make Boatlift. And I think if you can get through something like that, and you know what that's like on any project, whether it's a feature or you live with the project. You live with the project, you live with the people. And,
yeah, but usually I don't ascribe newer traits to them and newer skills.
What do you mean newer skills?
I'm like, oh, he's really good at editing. I think he's gonna kill it and shooting it.
I was always shooting. I've never stopped shooting, and so we've had conversations about that before. It's like, and he knows that I could shoot and I had gear, and so it seemed like to be a no-brainer. And here's the other thing: look, if I'm going to go and cut the piece, why not be the guy who's actually putting the clips
Take another job from a poor, starving cinematographer.
No, I actually ended up getting sick. So I think whoever that starving cinematographer is, he dodged a bullet. I ended up getting sick on my way back and had to go to the hospital, and it was horrible.
So was it nice after all those years to go and actually shoot a project?
Yeah, I'm saying if you're an editor, if you're in the post, if you're going to be the guy telling that story in the post, there's no better way to fully understand the story than it would be to be on set. Most of the time you don't do that because it's just too expensive and there's really nothing for you to do as the editor. But the fact that I could shoot and I had gear, I was immersed in it. I was immersed in it for 2 weeks. So it's not just what was in, what we put on the hard drives. It's also just the experience that you had while you're out there, the conversations that you had with people when you weren't shooting. And that helps to inform the choices that you make when you cut. Right. Just get more and more information about it and just know it on a more personal, intimate level.
No, absolutely. I think an editor should be involved in lots of projects that they're never brought in until the very end. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
That's a whole other problem. Forget on that.
Yeah.
So I do want to move on to your directing work. So we've showed some of your editing work and some of your stealing cinematographers' work, and now it's time. Now it's time. I want that day rate.
Yep.
Give me that fucking day rate. You're like Eddie. Why pay two guys when?
I do After Effects too. You know what I mean? Do that too.
You need a sound man. You don't need a sound man. Come on. All right. That's just fun of the industry. But so you started. I mean, you were always obviously directing since a kid and doing all these different things, but you took it more seriously at some point where you're like, I got to do this, right? I got to change my career path and do this, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know anybody that doesn't want to direct. I mean, that doesn't want to direct, that doesn't want to actually have something that you create in your mind, actually see it back. See it back in front of you. I think that's a dream of a lot of people. I think for me, it was something that I was always doing as a kid, and I remember what that's like to visualize something, actually go and put in the work to create it, and then seeing it played back, and then making calibrating whether or not it was good or bad, and making those adjustments and moving on. That's a skill in and of itself. I also think that if you do this thing long enough, if you're in this business long enough, you start to see your own voice. You have an opinion on what your take on something would be. And I think as you get older, you become a little more solid in that. You become a little more secure in yourself, a little more secure in your point of view. You actually develop a point of view. And I think for me, it was I was seeing things that I wasn't seeing anybody else do, and I wanted to make them happen. Plus, it's just a lot of fun. I mean, I can't stress that enough. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work. It's one of the hardest industries, and it's the hardest job within that industry, but it's a hell of a lot of fun, man. And if all your friends are in that world, it's a chance to do some great work with great people, and have a great end product. I mean, it's literally a win-win-win. So at a certain point, I wanted to actually be the person creating the video that we're going to be working from.
I want to discuss a music video we worked on that, and it was one of your first serious directorial things. It's called My Sweet Radio, and it's a music video. Can you tell us a bit about that before I show the folks?
There was a music video that was it was created as part of a package that was going to launch an artist. So they had done the album, they were ready to drop the single, they had done some photo shoots, and they wanted a music video that they can push to generate interest and buzz for the artist. And so essentially I was approached with the song, had a meeting with the artist, talked to him a little bit about what the inspiration was for the song. Then I took the song back, and I just sat there and listened to it with the lyrics, sort of decomposed it, and came up with a story, came up with an interpretation of it that I worked back and forth with the artist to make sure that it was in line with not only his vision for the song, but also in line for the plan that they had for him as an artist to launch him, and that it was in line with the image that they wanted to portray. And I came up with that story. Came up with a story of why don't we see this kid grow up from the time that he was, a young kid being inspired by this radio to the time when he was 50, 60 years old, having been with the love of his life, whatever it was. And then we added the additional technical challenge to that, was to just do it all in one take. Do it all without cutting the camera. Cutting the camera as little as possible.
We cut 4 times, right? Or 3 times?
There was 3 edits, so there was 4 takes. 4 takes that became 3 edits, and for the most part they were seamless. I mean, some of them were more seamless than others, but they were really it was really meant to be played out like like one long continuous take. And the first shot actually was really interesting because I really wanted to do at least one shot where you saw him grow from one age to another without cutting the camera at all. So some of them, within the cuts you could see him get older as we cut, but I thought it'd be really interesting to do at least one moment where it happens right in front of the camera, and that was like within the first 20 seconds of the song, where you see the kid go from, I guess he was like 8 years old to 25. We did that all seamlessly without cutting the camera. It was a really intricate sort of dance. And what I thought was interesting about that was, look, I've been editing for so many years. I as a challenge, I wanted to do something that required no edits, where the edits were literally just putting the takes and syncing them up. And I also thought it would be a lot of fun to be able to have that on set. So in theory, when you get to the end of the shoot days, we could just play the video back and the whole crew can see what it is that we've worked to create. And that was a really, really challenging production. You were definitely the right guy to shoot that. I mean, we had a lot of challenges on that. Every shot was its own little beast, and just had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, we had you know, it was cool. Let me show it first because I'm going to show. Let me just show a couple of clips, and then we'll come back. All right.
I woke up this morning, my radio playing my favorite songs for me. Has me feeling so good, she's candy sweet. That radio on repeat, she gets me over you. I named her Cheryl too. It's me and my radio. Something the DJ is playing that sounds so sweet. Those were the days I swept you off your feet. But my radio, has always been good to me. I'll tell you a story, one you can trust. I felt single, sad and blue. My radio's smarter than you. She plays my song. Ha! Sweet baby, don't do me wrong. Sam Cooke, he sang it the best. Oh, bring it on home. My radio brings it on home. Something the DJ is playing that sounds so sweet. Those are the days I swept you off your feet. But my radio has always been good to me. So I wrote you that letter, talking you and I forever, but here in a different tune. I'm over you now for good. No more me and you. I got my new song. I'll bring it on home. My radio brings it on home. Something the DJ is playing that sounds so sweet. Those were the days I swept you off your feet. But my radio has always been good to me. Something the DJ is playing that sounds so sweet. Those were the days I swept you off your feet. But my radio has always been good to me.
So basically, we can see that it looks like one long take, but obviously we have three cuts in it.
Yeah.
And one thing that was interesting, I do want to discuss. Remember when we did our first day, we shot inside in sort of a speakeasy type of thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was the public assembly in Williamsburg.
That was actually
to look like a lounge.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had a plan for the whole video, but that was the first time I think I got it, when it all came together in that first sort of long take on how everything is happening, and then when we saw it happening, obviously we have nice monitors now, so we're like, oh, this looks really fucking good. Basically, right off that first bat, we knew that, wow, this is something good.
We knew we had something special, and I think you actually bring up a good point, because there were a lot of people that trusted me on that. You know, even you, to a certain extent, I would try to explain how this was going to play out, and it was something where it was just like, you just got to trust me. If we just do it this way, just trust me, it's going to be great. It's not about what's happening outside the camera. It's just that little piece that we're going to see. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be awesome, you know. And a lot of people trusted me to execute that, and I think there was a moment there leading up to like those first few takes on that very first day where it was like, either all of this was a waste of time and this guy's out of his mind, or there's actually something really good here. And I think everybody got it that day. That first day when we had, you know, the studio shoot, we came up around that girl. It was the third shot in the video that's all black and white was the very first thing that we shot. And it was like coming up over the girl's shoulder with the letter, then seeing the guy on stage with the smoke, then he comes down, and while we're up on his face, the entire set is being redressed. Everyone's pulling everything out of the way, so when we pull back, it's a completely empty dance floor, and you don't see any of that in front of the camera.
All the chaos that is going on behind camera.
You had like you built like a China ball, and it was like swinging. You know, the grips were like swinging this China ball to create this really moody lighting. I mean, there was so much going on, and ultimately, it was just something that looked really, really simple.
Yeah, it looks right. It looks like you don't realize but we were in chaos. Like behind the camera, it was chaos.
Absolutely mad, absolutely mad. And I got
and like I'm yelling things at the gaffer to go move this light here, get the dimmer up here. I was just like, it's just so loud and obnoxious because it's a music video. You can be yelling.
Oh yeah, there was a ton of cues. Lights up, you know, to this, boom. Art department was moving the tables out of the way. I mean, everything had to be mobile and moving, and even some of the dancers were like pulling things off the table so that they could get in and dance into position. And I think all of them presented unique challenges. They were all like a unique little piece of theater, and it's like we were saying earlier, it was like it's what I imagine it was like shooting Birdman, where it was like, we're just going to go and we get it or we don't. And there's something really magical about that when you can do it in camera. You know, in today's day and age where a lot of it's done in post, I think there was something really nice about doing it old school. We're going to do it in front of the lens and just put the cuts together and have it be done.
Right. It's because you were tired of editing shit.
I just didn't want to end. Yeah, but I ended up spending a lot of time in post, you know, with the color and trying to get that, you know, the looks right for the years that they were supposed to represent. There was still a lot of post work on it, but it wasn't about creating the story in post,
right? Which
is what happens a lot, you know. What happens a lot, you know. Someone gave me a good piece of advice as a director at some point. I forgot who it was that said it, but they were like, "Be a director, not a collector," and you know, with cameras being so cheap, with cards being so cheap, like we were saying, buying film and having to go and like purchase film and only being able to get 11 minutes and not being able to reuse it, you know, you develop a certain way that you shoot, and I think you can be spoiled when in the age of video when you could just use hard drives forever and you just keep shooting, and then figure it out in post. There's something really nice about not doing that, about saying, no, we're here to get 4 shots, and when we get those 4 shots, we're going home. Right. And we did. And we got those takes, and they were great. And I think the culmination of that was that final shot. What most people don't even notice, but the fact that you go around that guy once, and that, you know, there's that car in the background, the headlights come on, and when we come back around again, that car has flipped 180 degrees. And Tom Shannon, that PA, bless his heart, learned how to turn that car around. I think he did it in 17 seconds.
Right. We had like a window. I don't know how many seconds, but yes, in
17 seconds,
you had to turn the car 180 degrees. Completely around in the right position, and yes,
and it took open both of the doors, and then he had to clear the frame because the 2 actors had to jump in, and he had to leave the car running so they could get in and pull the car away. But you don't even notice that when you watch the video. The car is flipped over, and at first he did it in like 30, and we kept rehearsing it till he got it down to like 17. Like he might have actually hurt himself on a couple of those takes, trying to get out of frame in time.
Right, jump out of frame.
Yeah, trying to jump out of frame, and then but he did it, and that's what was beautiful. What was beautiful about it was you put all this effort in, and then once you get it, it's done. It's frozen forever. That's it.
And we shot a lot of takes. That was like 17 takes. I don't remember. It was a lot.
But of the last one?
Yeah.
I don't think we shot that many.
No?
No. I think
and these are, by the way, this is even if it was 10, these are huge setups. These are like all these extras, all these dancers, the choreography, the singing, the car, like PAs running in and out. Like there's a lot, and plus our Steadicam op, Dave Eisern, by the way, who was amazing. He has to be fucking maneuvering around everybody and going through people, and like it was insane.
It was hair raising, man. It was hair raising for some of those things. He was really close, like cutting really close by by some people with the mat box, and there was also like water flying everywhere for 2 of the takes,
right?
And like protecting him. Yeah, I mean everybody really, really stepped it up, and I think that was one of the most rewarding jobs, directing. And it could just be because it was like the first real gig that I'm saying. It was like my first real gig. But it was also really rewarding because, look, as good as the concept was, and I think we had a great concept going in, as good as it was made better by all of the people that were in their respective positions. I remember one key moment. This was a key moment towards the end. I remember having this conversation with you when we did the first 2 takes of the final shot. There was that moment when we came around. This was the moment in there where the car needed to be reset.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we were doing it was we were kind of, going up to Julian, to his face, and we were kind of lingering there for a second, and we were kind of bouncing around. And I was like, that moment just feels sort of dead. It feels like we're waiting for something. And you were like, well, then why don't we do this? Like, why are we rushing over to him? Why don't we sort of just like take it slow? And you just had some like ideas to make that moment interesting and not have it be like just a boring filler moment while we're waiting for something else. And it's not something that I would have thought of, but you brought that idea to the table. Dave, Steadicam brought ideas to the table, and it just made it better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when it really works. As much as you're the director and you're the keeper of the vision and all of that, I think a lot of it is just really allowing people to do what they do. And that's what I wanted to do. I think I had a couple of personal goals on that project, and one of them was if I can do the work and create a concept that can inspire these people, they're going to work harder and they're going to put way more into it than you could, if you're paying them, $1 million. And I think, looking back at the jobs that I've put my heart into the most, a job like Boatlift on the editing side, it's because I was inspired. I was inspired by the story, or I was inspired by the director, or I was just inspired by one piece of it. You end up putting so much more into it than money can get out of someone. And I think that was one of those where we achieved that. I think we achieved that on Sweet Radio.
Well, everybody knew, right? Everybody knew they weren't making a mediocre piece of a music video. We weren't in a warehouse. We weren't. Yeah. We didn't have our
strobes and
10 coverages of the guitar players and the solo. So like it wasn't cheesy in that respect. So everybody understood that this is actually something different and special. I think everybody got that.
Yeah. Well, it was also for me a chance to rehearse the storytelling muscle. The storytelling muscle, the telling a short film to music. And I think that's important too. I think, it's like we're saying, be a director, not a collector. You can go and you can get the shots of the people playing it, but that's what you go see the band live for. That's why you go see them live. I think that, a music video that's why I love the medium. I love music videos because they're just a chance to explore so much of your visual storytelling and so much of your directing. I think it's the perfect place to just work through a lot of your ideas.
Well, I'm just going to go straight to your other music video, even though it was later on in life after you directed several things, just because it makes sense. Because this feeds off of a whole single shot, right?
Which one?
Because in My Sweet Radio, in Boundless, right?
Yeah.
You made it seem like it was, you cut in certain things, but you try to make it seem like one cohesive story, right? From him going to one world through a door, ending up somewhere else, going through another door. So you tried to, the original concept was to have a single shot, right? Even though you ended up cutting some of it.
Yes.
So you were trying to take it farther, even like
yes, we wanted to take it further and actually have it be.
You were doing Birdman before Inuratu.
I was doing Birdman. I was doing Birdman before.
Right.
Before it was Birdman. Yeah,
well, why don't I play a little bit of it just so people
next,
see this music video, and let me play a second of it. Actually, I was getting into it. I was going to watch the whole thing.
It's crazy. I have not heard or seen that video in so long, and I still love that song.
I'm gonna have it on my site, of course, as well, so people can see it. But tell us.
I absolutely love that song.
Yeah, the song's
like we
really
were saying,
good.
Right? Inspiration. The music of that song just inspired me on that. I really wanted to do that song justice.
Okay, so what was the point of the video? Because originally I think you wanted a single shot, but you ended up doing still the concept. You still kept the concept. He goes through a door, he ends up somewhere. He goes through another door, he ends up somewhere. So what is the concept of the video?
That concept there was, again, having spoken to the artist about what the song was about, it being boundless, we wanted to create an endless loop. We wanted to create an endless loop where, we knew that we wanted the character to end up at the same place that he started and have it be sort of an infinite loop where you realize that this is one piece of a much larger story that doesn't have a beginning, middle, or an end. And so how do we do that? We wanted him to start in the same location and eventually end up back at the same location, and then seeing the cycle repeat so that by the end of the video you realize that it's technically the start of the next video. It would just kind of go on forever. And yes, we did want it on a technical achievement we wanted to achieve was to get it to happen in one continuous take, where you can go through a door and go into another location. And we did try. That's one where we actually did, I think, 2 or 3 different tests. Like we had a bunch of tests and we tried a couple of different techniques. And Dave Eisern, actually he was Steadicam on one of the days, and he was great. He just came down for free. He wanted to be a part of it. He's like, I'll come down, I'll shoot the test. I really love the concept. I'll come down and I'll shoot the test and we'll just figure it out. And I totally donated his time and his gear. And we tried a couple different things.
And this is a guy, by the way, who makes mint, just so everybody knows. So if you want to hire an awesome Steadicam op, this is the guy to go to.
He's the guy. And and he he was totally in love with the concept. He loved working on Sweet Radio. He wanted to take that to the next level too, because it would also, for him, it also showcases his abilities. It showcases his abilities as an operator. And so we tried a couple different things to get it to be perfectly seamless doing it that way. And we could have, and we definitely shot some things.
You know what the problem was?
Pieces to do it.
You know the problem was?
What?
You didn't have me.
Oh, that's right. You didn't shoot that one.
I didn't shoot that one. I think I was shooting something else. I would have. This is a great concept, and I would have made you fucking do that whole concept.
You were shooting one of those projects that pays you a lot of money, but not creatively. Satisfying.
Fuck creativity. I got bills to pay.
I got kids to feed. I got 5 kids to feed.
It was probably something like that, but the concept is brilliant, and I think at some point we should still execute what you're talking about, doing it one take that's completely. I know Birdman sort of took our thunder, but
yeah, but Birdman was different. Birdman goes in and out of one location. You know, that's fine. I mean, what I was really trying to achieve, I was really inspired by the Adjustment Bureau.
Right, when he runs into a door, he comes out somewhere else, right?
Yeah, but the way that
different
they did
location.
It was so absolutely seamless that the character from location A is walking around in the world of location B perfectly seamlessly. And we tried a lot of things to get that to happen. Did a bunch of tests and some graphic tests too. You know, there was a couple motion graphics people that donated their time as well. You know, my buddy Fred and Alexander Joe, donated some time to try to make this thing work out. Ultimately, we realized unless we have like motion control or because we researched how they did Adjustment Bureau, and a lot of that was complete motion control and a lot of like, you know, really meticulous measurements and the right lenses and exposures. And we tried to get as close as we could to it, and we did as much of that as we could. And, you know, some painstaking rotoscopes made some of those shots achievable. It wasn't 100% an execution of the idea, but it was 80%, and I'm okay with that because we did shoot for something that was really, really ambitious. And if we fell a little bit short, I still think it was an achievement that we were all proud of.
Well, this is one case also, you being an editor, because like, you know, could you trust this kind of level of expertise to make that happen to somebody else? Like, you'd pay them a fortune. You know what I mean?
Well, I did. No, actually, I did. I mean, I did. I think one of the rotoscopes. I did the first rotoscope. I did the first roto of, like, you know, when he goes into the door on the beach. But all the rest of them were done by either Fred or Alex. And I mean,
but they gave you the friend. They gave you the friend rate. There was no way.
I actually think no. I don't even think they charged us. I mean, we put all of the money for that budget. Whereas on Sweet Radio, we actually had a really good budget for Sweet Radio. We had a really, really good budget for that, but we didn't have a lot of money for Boundless. And I think the reason why we were able to get the people that we did was, again, because we inspired them with a concept that was great. It was something that they would have wanted to be attached to. It was a lot of hard work, and it was a lot of hard work for the two of them, for Fred and for Alex, months and months of just painstaking rotoscoping and continuing to make it better so that those shots look perfect. And I mean, I probably spent 7 or 8 months in the editorial process and tweaking a lot of things. I mean, there was a studio shoot involved for that. There was a lot. You know, there's all these projection videos that you see behind him.
I actually like that a lot.
Had to be edited. You know, and I edited those 2 videos. Those are the full length of the song that were timed to be projected, you know, as a background, one on the floor and one behind him.
Well, what was that projection? What were you projecting?
We were projecting, it was a combination. Some of it was shot footage, some of it was stock footage, some of it was like, you know, some graphic footage that we found or that we bought online. And it was another interpretation of the song. You know, because it was also came from a lot from the artist and a lot of what the artist, what Keith does live. You know, he does a lot of the sort of projections live, and he's got this. You know, he had some ideas, some initial concepts for what he was thinking that the video would be, and we tried to incorporate some of that, and some of that was using projections. And we also had this idea. You know, in the development of that, there's a moment in the video when he goes to this door, and we, you know, myself and, you know, the other team, the other production company that I was working with on that Cut Rush, you know, Van and Ashley, we had talked through some ideas of, like, what if we took the output of the Red camera and hooked it up to a projector that was projecting the image of what it was seeing onto itself. You know, that cool thing that you do when you're a kid and you aim the video camera at the TV and you get that weird feedback loop. What would that be like if we did it through, you know, a Red camera through a projector and then projected it onto a background? And so we just wanted to create and play with some technology, and that was sort of like, well, how do we use that? You know, how can we do that? And so we did some tests, and, you know, so projections were always a part of the initial concept in terms of how we wanted to tell that story. And but it required a lot of work. I mean, I essentially had to cut 2 full-length versions of these projections that would then have to be synced up somehow, and then in addition get, you know, we had 2 Red cameras on that, one that was shooting the thing and the other one that would shoot the projections. There was a lot of technical challenges on that.
That actually, it's making me jealous. I wasn't there that day, at least.
that was a lot of fun. That day was one of the longest shoot days ever. I think we shot 20 hours that day.
Oh, Jesus. Forget it. I don't want to be there.
I got videos and pictures of that. I mean, we had a bunch of computers that were hooked up to the 2 projectors that had to be in sync to be able to play back the song, because that's what he was singing to. And then we also had another camera that had another projector on it that was projecting the image of what it saw. So it was just, there was so much going on behind the scenes, and that was just for the studio portion. That wasn't even for the story portion. So at one point we were, the location we were was our studio, but it was also like the area where we shot the rooftop. So we had two things happening simultaneously. We were prepping one and shooting in another, and it was one of the longest days. The longest shoot days ever. I mean, it had to be 20 hours. It had to be 20 hours. And but it was great. I mean, again, you look at it and it was effortless. And for me, it was one of those times where I knew that we couldn't get away with what we did in Sweet Radio, which is like not showing the performance. Like we had him performing in Sweet Radio, and we were trying to stay away from that and have it be a story. But we knew that we needed to showcase this artist because he is a very visual, he has a very striking look, and we knew that we wanted to show that. But how do we do that in a way that isn't that typical music video, headshot, singing, playing? And so we came up with that idea with the projections.
No, that actually makes it interesting. I'm glad you didn't go to a warehouse and shoot him in a close-up playing his guitar.
So. Right. I mean, look, because if you want to see that, you can go see him live. You could go and see him. And actually, we said to ourselves, why don't we shoot it just to have, because we might want it in post. And I remember there was a point where we had some downtime and we set up the shot. And we did a run through of it, and we looked at it, and we were like, "We're not going to use this. Let's not even bother. We're just not going to use it. It's not that kind of video." And I think ultimately we came out with something that, if you go see that art, if you go see Keith Barrick, the artist in it, if you go see him live, that video is what you see live. It is the presence that he creates live. But we captured it, and then we added a story element to it. So I think we achieved a home run in that sense. In that we got something that was really true to what the artist was. For me, there was a lot of technical challenges, not just technically in terms of the gear, but also in storytelling. Like, how do we tell this story? And it was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun. That was a really, really fun project.
Cool. I also want to talk that those are your videos, right? I think these are the only two music videos you shot. Is that correct? And in continuing your directing path, I guess, you shot actually a short film. This was following My Sweet Radio, but you shot a short film called Lint.
Yeah, the short film was between the two videos.
Right. But I just want to go to Lint now, because now it takes us to a different way of storytelling, which is now you have people talking, now you have actors. It's not musicians pretending to act and all that stuff. So it's a different, even though it's a story, of course, but it's a told, using different techniques to tell it. Let me show Lint, because it's weird. And I shot this one too with you, of course. Yeah. Anything good you do, I'm usually there. But actually, I've picked the projects that I've worked on. That's really what I'm doing.
That's what it was. You were just being really selective.
I'm being really selective. So Lint is a really weird story. So it's not for everybody. I mean, it's. I think it's great, but obviously it's fucking weird. All right, let's watch the beginning, and people will understand what I mean.
It was fun at first. All the little balls of navel lint. I used to get different shirts so I could get all the colors from my belly button. They look like gumballs.
So what happened?
I bet I'm the only one who feels claustrophobic outside on the streets. Lately, it's been so much. I notice it most when I'm nervous.
Are you nervous now?
I'm the lint of this city, roaming, looking for a navel to crawl into, and never come out.
So, yeah, that's a weird short. Why don't you tell us what the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, I can't take credit for the story. I mean, I directed it, and I had a big part in the writing of it. But that was a story that I was actually presented to me as a potential project to direct, and I was able to work with the people that created the story to develop it into something that I felt was ready to be a film. And that was another unique process, because it was the first time that I had been brought on to something that was already in existence. It wasn't something that came out of my brain, or out of my own imagination, but I was definitely able to bring in my own sensibility and my own take on it. And I think through the process of, the creative collaboration, we were able to take something that was, a nugget, and we polished it and made it better and better and better until it eventually was what you worked on.
Well, give us a synopsis of what Lint is. People who didn't see, aren't watching it, but listening to the podcast.
It's a short film. It's a short film about a guy named Gary who has a unique medical condition, you could say. So whenever he gets nervous, his stomach produces uncontrollable amounts of navel lint. I mean, when you just say that, it's really weird and it's trippy, but that's what it's about. It's about a guy who's just got some weird issues, and that's how it manifests itself.
I always thought it was in his head.
Yeah, I mean, you could make a case for it that it was in his head, but I mean, all of the insecurities really are just in your head. I mean, most of them don't have any real basis in reality. They're just things that people feel insecure about. And I think that's what was fun about this, was you don't know if it's like really in his head or not. But I mean, within the terms of in the rules of the story, yes, people do see the lint, and so it is actually real. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's just in his head and then they cut away and the stuff's gone. It actually is real, but it's a metaphor, you know. And I think I think short films are a fun way to practice the directing muscle narratively, the same way that music videos are, because they're short and inherently it gives you a chance to tell the complete story, beginning, middle, and an end, but in a shorter period. So you don't have to invest, say, a full year on a feature that just doesn't work. You can run through these ideas, you know, do it in a 10-minute thing. If you can do it in 10 minutes, then try a half hour next, and then you can do, you know, a full-on feature there. So it was a really good practice. It was good practice for the storytelling muscles and working with actors, et cetera, et cetera.
So we're going to show a commercial next, but basically your projects that you're directing are all across the board. It's not like you're like, okay, I'm going to be a narrative director and I'm just going to make these narrative films. You basically went music videos to short films to commercials, back to a music video. So is that out of necessity, or is that some sort of master plan? You're like, I just want to tell stories. It doesn't matter which way I tell them, or do you have some sort of master plan going on here?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to say that there's a master plan, but I don't think that there is a master plan. I think I try to gravitate towards the things that bring me joy. I think that's something that I try to do with my life in general, and also with the projects that I would take on. Each of the projects, again, I think what it comes down to for me is if there's something in there that inspires me, it's going to make me want to do it. And I think with each of those projects, there's something very specific about it that inspired me. I think the music videos, obviously, you can see what, you know, we've talked about what those were. The short film was a chance to practice the narrative muscle, to work with actors, to do the process traditionally and really get your hands dirty and do things traditionally, coverage and how that's all going to work out. It was also, you know, a challenge production-wise. And those are just things that that are fun to do. I really do enjoy challenging myself, and I enjoy getting into something where you may not know exactly how you're going to get around the other side, but you know that you can just, you know, put the hard work in and you can get it done. And I think what the commercials were, it was fun to take something that we do, whether it's directing, editing, and actually apply it to not just telling our own story, but telling the story of a company. Like now you're taking what you've done and you've applied it to this other company that has something to say. They want to be known, and you get to come in there, or I felt like I get to come in there and actually shape the way that this company is seen. You know,
that's true. Well, why don't I show it? We're talking about Zip, correct?
Yeah, Zip Aviation.
So yeah, I'm going to show it real quick. Hold on. So Zip Aviation is a helicopter company that we shot a commercial for. So
yeah, they do helicopter tours and charters.
Yeah, and they're right in New York City for anyone who wants to, you know, pay them a lot of money for a 30-minute helicopter ride.
Well, they'll take you to Vegas or Atlantic City.
All right.
Or
I mean, it's expensive just to get a ride around the city, right? So okay, I'm gonna play the commercial. This is a 30-second spot.
Pre-flight systems check. Ready to rock and roll. 99 Zulu Alpha on the go.
Cool. So that was pretty good. I wanted to see more again.
We did a couple of other pieces. I mean, I wish we would have been able to finish the longer brand ID pieces that we did. We did a couple of pieces for them, and ultimately we had to settle on just a 30-second commercial.
Well, I like the 30-second because it's sort of like you don't get enough of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's digestible. You get it. You get who they are very quickly, and then
Yeah.
You know, you want more, you'll go and.
So I mean, what's interesting, everybody, you know, who shoots helicopters, there's usually a process to shooting helicopters. That's not what we followed exactly, right? So this was, you know, because we got some beautiful shots there. Those look amazing. Like, how many gimbals do we have on that helicopter? I forget.
What's 0 minus 0? Or 0 plus 0?
Yeah. Well, can you talk about how we did this? How we actually got these wonderful shots of skyscrapers, the Statue of Liberty?
The GoPro shots were actually, they were suction cupped to the, you know, that GoPro shot that you see at the beginning was actually suction cupped to the helicopter.
Right, that's the one underneath the helicopter. That's the one shot.
The rest of it, what they did was they took the doors off of the helicopter and they rigged us so that we were, you know, basically safety harnessed into the helicopter. We had an AC that was there as like a secondary backup, and we essentially strapped the cameras to us and then us to the helicopter. So if the cameras fell out of our hand, they would dangle in front of the camera. We'd, you know, in front of the helicopter, we'd be able to get them. But all those shots were handheld, and we were essentially hanging out of the helicopter to get these shots. I mean, just like either sitting on the edge of the railing with our feet on the rails, or sitting inside, leaning out of the helicopter, and that's how we got those shots. And I think one of the reasons we were able to get those shots and get them so clean is because we shot everything in such slow motion.
Yeah, I mean, I remember everything was like 96 frames a second, basically, right?
No, that was a minimum. We were shooting some of those 120.
Oh, okay.
120. It depended on what the shot was. But to speak to your point about, like, is there a master plan or any of that? Like, just in speaking to, like, what would be the common thing across it? I think you can see, you know, throughout all the pieces that I would direct, I try to play a lot with time. You know, as a musician, I'm fascinated with time. I'm just fascinated with time in general. There's a lot of the principles of it, the theories of it, how it still confuses physicists today. Just fascinated with it, and so being able to play with time and slow motion is just always, it's a lot of fun for me. And I think it helped us get some shots and capture something about that company or about the feeling of being up on a helicopter that you couldn't get normal speed. You know, when you see these helicopter blades in slow motion, it just creates a really cool, powerful feeling. And that's what it's like. If you've ever been in a helicopter and you're up on one of these things, it feels just really powerful.
Well, this is what I remember. That's really amazing, actually. I still, to this day, like when I was watching that, I remember hanging out of the helicopter with the red camera thinking, being more worried about the red camera than my fucking safety.
Oh, I know. You're looking at the screen and you don't realize, as soon as you looked away from the screen and you saw, that's when it hit you.
You're like miles looking down, straight down. And it's actually, when you look at the city, you know, we've seen so many pictures of the city, right? But to stare at the city at that height with no doors, nothing besides the wind smashing in your face, and it is smashing. It's not like, it's windy up there, right?
Oh yeah.
And trying to stabilize that camera.
Like 1,200 feet, anywhere from 900 to 1,200 feet.
Yeah, but just looking at that city and coming up on the city and I was like, oh my God, this is fucking beautiful. It is the concrete jungle.
It was breathtaking. It was breath.
And I didn't think, I don't get emotional. You know what I mean? I don't start to cry at these things.
When we were up there getting those last few shots and it was dusk.
Yeah.
And you're up there looking at the sun setting, you're like, okay, what I remember feeling was like there's this overwhelming feeling of we are not supposed to be here. Yeah. Like, I'm not supposed to be seeing this. Like, this is what you see when you die. Like, we're not supposed to be here. With the door off like that, I mean,
I honestly, yeah, because we took a ride, you know, I'm talking about this because it's just so mesmerizing. Cinematically, it was mesmerizing to film it, but to actually view it personally, it's a whole other level. It's like cinema can't capture yet what we saw. Do you know what I mean? I don't even know how to translate that without everybody who's listening to this to go on a fucking helicopter, take off the doors, strap themselves with a bungee cord.
Yeah, it's like it's what you think flying would feel like.
Right.
It really is what you think flying would feel like.
I think you're right about that. Yeah,
you're feeling it. You know, we ended up doing a second shoot for them because that spot that we did was for the winter, and we wanted to do a spot for the summer. And I remember going back up there. Again, you weren't available for that one, so I went up with Van from Cut Rush, who we did the other music video with, and we went up and we were shooting, and there was one moment we wanted to get a really good shot of the Freedom Tower. So the guy comes, you know, the pilot, I forgot his name, I wish I remember his name, he was an awesome pilot. He pulls up to to Freedom Tower, and I'm like, man, what I really want is this one shot where we're almost looking straight down. And he's like, well, are you strapped in? Are you good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. So I'm in, and the AC's holding on to me, and I have the camera there, and he's like, hold on. And so he takes the entire helicopter and turns it.
Oh.
Because I couldn't lean out enough.
Right, because you're strapped in.
He's like, yeah, well, I was strapped in, but I couldn't lean out enough to get the angle that I needed. So he was like, don't worry, I got you. And he leaned the whole helicopter almost 45 degrees. And there was a moment that I'm looking at the shot. I'm like, it's great because he's going around it. And I'm like, it's great. And then I looked away for a second and I saw straight down. You have no, I mean, what I noticed being from the helicopter is when you're really high up, you don't feel as nervous or as weird about the height as when you're near something like the Freedom Tower, because there you have a really it's a very visual representation. You understand how high that is. When you're up in a plane, you're like whatever, but when you're there and you realize what that would be like if you fell,
it's done.
It was it was everything I could do to hold that camera just steady. It was a really, really breathtaking moment. Scary as shit, but
this is the one thing that sort of cinema takes you out of what's actually going on. So because like you said, when we were up there and we're filming, as long as you're looking at the monitor, you have no idea what kind of danger you are in. Yeah, it's just like, wow, this is an amazing shot. Let me frame this up. Let me change some settings on the fucking red camera while I'm hanging 2 miles over some goddamn building.
1,000 feet up above the city.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a wonderful experience. So
yeah,
and good commercial. But another interesting thing that you brought up is that once again you took another job from a camera operator. That me and you shot it.
I don't always
together, right? You operated one red camera, I operated the other.
Yeah, we did. We operated. You operated one, I operated the other.
So why are you taking these jobs away from these poor people?
Listen, if any of those guys want some editing gigs, I got plenty of them. I can throw them their way.
All right, cool. So I think that basically covers your history. I think we're done. This is my last question for you. What is next? What is happening? When are you going to stop making these rinky-dinky shorts and music videos and make a feature film?
I know you've been pushing me to do a feature for a while. I think a feature definitely is in the cards. It's going to be something that it's an original story that I write. I think for me to do that, to make that sort of commitment, it's going to have to be something that I really, really love, and I think it's going to have to be something that comes from my mind. So it's going to take some time to sit down and I have a couple of stories that I'd like to tell and flesh them out, and then properly fund them. Because look, I'm not gonna do it if it's not done right. I kind of know what it would need to be, and we know how we can cut corners and we can save money, and I think that's definitely in the cards. But I would say that that's still a ways off. I think right now I'm much more interested in creating shorter, more bite-sized pieces of work.
More commercial work.
Say again?
More commercial work, basically.
Yeah, but not for any specific client. Just personal projects, just personal projects. I think I'm getting to a point now where I'm and again, going back to what I said about time, I'm much more aware of time now, and I'm much more aware of how I use my time and how valuable it actually is. And I think what I'd like to spend my time doing now, what I am spending my time doing now, is more projects that are more personal to me. Projects that are more personal, things that I've always wanted to do, or an animation that I've wanted to do, or something that I've always wanted to shoot, or going on vacation and taking a few days out of the vacation to collect some materials for a longer project. I think that's it's just developing.
You're gonna ruin some poor girl's vacation. You're gonna ruin some poor girl's vacation. Let me take a few days out of this vacation, honey.
We didn't say what kind of movie we're shooting, and it could actually be a lot of fun.
Right. No, I'm saying if you're going on vacation with somebody, right?
Yeah.
Assuming your girlfriend or something, and then you're like, let me take a few days. I can't see you. I'm going to be shooting some material.
Right, I'll see you later.
I'm shooting some material for a possible film in the future.
No, listen.
That actually sounds like my idea of fun. Maybe I should be on this vacation.
Right, and you just go and shoot for 5 out of the 7 days.
You pay for my Hawaii vacation. I'll shoot you some good stuff.
I'm really close to Hawaii right now, and that's in the cards, and that's happening.
All right, cool. Well, I hope you make that feature, because I'm sure it's going to be fucking crazy. Crazy good.
It'll be absolutely nothing. And we should talk, because I definitely have some ideas, and it would have to be something that, again, not only is something that we've never done before, but also something that brings in some of the best of whatever the tech is around, and having it blend into the story in a way that disappears.
Yeah.
because the tech is important and it's cool and it's fun, but if it becomes about that, I think that's something that's separate. We're not looking to do camera tests or...
No. That's the thing. I love cameras. I love technology, but at the end of the day, if you're watching a movie, you could give a shit about that stuff. It's more important that the story's interesting. All that shit goes away because no one sitting in the theater is like, oh, did he shoot on a Red or an Alexa? Besides me and you and some cinematographers arguing about all that shit, nobody cares.
But I mean, even then, look, if it wasn't a good story, you're probably not going to be in the theater anyway.
Of course.
So,
or you'll leave real fast.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it was good catching up. We actually haven't talked. This is the longest we've talked in probably like 6 months.
You put two fucking hens together. It's not that hard. All right. See you later, man.
Take it easy.
And actually, there's a part 3, but that's being uploaded as a separate audio file for those interested to hear Carlos's philosophy on editing. And I thank him very much because he's a very talented guy, and I'm sure you'll see a feature from him soon. So next week up, we have Jesse Tendler, a producer on independent films, so stay tuned. Don't forget you could email us at info@photographyofdirector.com if you have any show ideas or would even want to be on the show. Please let us know.